ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung support.
Tears and triumph. Eala exposes dark past after destroying Venus Williams in shocking upset. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only place where we serve the hottest news, the wildest rumors, and the most heart-stopping moments from the world of tennis straight to your screen. If you think you know the cost of greatness, think again, because today's story is going to shatter everything you thought you knew about the rising stars of the WTA Tour. We are talking about a revelation so raw, so unexpected, and so heartbreaking that it has left the entire tennis world in stunned silence, only to be followed by a victory so loud it shook the foundations of the ASB Classic in Auckland. We have to talk about Eala, the Filipino sensation, the 20-year-old prodigy who just did the unthinkable. But before we get to the scoreboard, before we get to the massive upset that sent Venus Williams packing, we need to address the bombshell that dropped just hours before she stepped onto the court. In a moment of vulnerability that no one saw coming, Eala peeled back the curtain on her life, and what she revealed was not the glamorous life of a jet-setting athlete, but a dark, lonely tunnel of severe mental health struggles that nearly broke her. Imagine being a teenager, thousands of miles away from home, thrust into the high-pressure cooker of the American tennis system. Eala broke down in tears as she confessed to the world that her teenage years were plagued by severe mental health issues. She spoke about the crushing weight of isolation, revealing that she was bullied and ignored, singled out simply for being an Asian girl trying to make it in the United States. It is a confession that hits you right in the chest. She wasn't just fighting opponents on the court. She was fighting a war in her own head, battling prejudice and loneliness while the world watched her swing a racket, completely oblivious to the tears she shed behind closed doors. Fans are in absolute shock. We look at these young athletes with their sponsors and their smiles, and we assume they are living the dream. But Alex painted a picture of a nightmare. She talked about the silence of the locker room, the cold shoulders, and the feeling that she didn't belong. Many are now wondering how a 20-year-old could endure all of that trauma and still stand tall. It changes everything. When you see her fist pump now, you realize it's not just about winning a point. It's about surviving. It is about proving to every bully, every doubter, and every person who ignored her that she is not just here to participate. She is here to take over. And take over is exactly what she did. Fresh off this emotional unburdening, Eala walked onto the hard courts of the ASB Classic in New Zealand, and she wasn't alone. She teamed up with American rising star Ivana, who is ranked world number 35 in singles. Together, they formed a teenage dream team with an average age of just 19. But who was standing on the other side of the net? Only absolute royalty. We are talking about the legendary Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion, and Elena Svitolina, the Ukrainian powerhouse. Between Venus and Elena, you are looking at 6 Olympic medals. You are looking at decades of experience, intimidation, and tennis history. On paper, this match looked like a masterclass waiting to happen, the veterans teaching the kids a lesson. But the script got flipped. The atmosphere in Auckland was electric. The crowd was ready to see Venus, the queen herself, work her magic alongside Svitolina. And for the first hour, it looked like the legends had it in the bag. The first set was a war of attrition. Williams and Svitolina were blasting ground strokes, using their court craft to push the teenagers around. It went to a tiebreak, and that is where the drama really kicked in. The veterans earned themselves set point. Then another, and another. In total, Venus and Svitolina held 7 set points. 7 times they stood on the brink of taking the lead. 7 times, the crowd held its breath, ready to applaud the inevitable. But Eala and Ivana refused to read the script. In a display of mental fortitude that likely stems from the very battles Eala spoke about, the teenagers dug their heels in. They didn't crumble. They didn't panic. They saved every single one of those 7 set points. Can you imagine the tension? The sheer nerve it takes to stare down Venus Williams on a set point and come up with a winner? They fought tooth and nail, clawing their way back into the tiebreak until they finally turned the tables, snatching the first set 9 points to 7. That comeback broke the legends. You could feel the air leave the stadium for the Williams-Svitolina camp. After battling for nearly an hour to win that first set and failing 7 times, the veterans looked deflated. The momentum swung so violently that the second set wasn't even a contest. It was a coronation. Eala and Jovic smelled blood. They came out firing, playing loose, aggressive, and joyful tennis. They steamrolled through the second set, dropping just one game. The final scoreline read 7-6, 6-1. The match lasted 1 hour and 29 minutes, but that second set was a blink-and-you'll-miss-it demolition. It was a statement win. To open the 2026 season by knocking out two pioneers of the sport is the stuff dreams are made of. And you could see what it meant to Eala. After the match, the tears from earlier were replaced by a beaming smile. She said, "I had such a good time on court. I think we had a lot of fun, and just to start the year with such a moment like this, and sharing the court with two pioneers of the sport, off the court as well, people I've looked up to since I was young. I'm so happy. It is almost poetic, isn't it? The girl who was once ignored and bullied for her background is now sharing the court and beating the very idols she grew up watching. It is the ultimate vindication. She didn't just share the court, she owned it. This victory sends a massive signal to the rest of the tour. The new generation isn't waiting for the torch to be passed. They are snatching it. But let's zoom out and talk about what this means for the bigger picture, because the implications of this victory ripple far beyond one match in Auckland. Eala's journey is representative of a larger conversation happening in professional sports right now. Mental health has become the elephant in the room that nobody wanted to acknowledge for decades, but players like Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, and now Eala are forcing the conversation into the spotlight. These athletes are showing us that the price of excellence isn't just measured in training hours and tournament wins. It's measured in sleepless nights, anxiety attacks, and the crushing loneliness of being far from home in a cutthroat environment. When Eala spoke about being bullied and isolated in the United States, she wasn't just sharing her personal trauma. She was giving voice to countless young international players who face similar struggles but don't have the platform to speak out. But here's what makes Eala's story so powerful. She didn't let that experience break her. She didn't quit tennis and go home. She didn't internalize the message that she didn't belong. Instead, she channeled that pain into fuel. Every time she steps on the court now, she's not just playing for herself. She's playing for every kid who's ever been made to feel like an outsider. She's playing for every young player who's been bullied or ignored. And she's proving that talent, determination, and mental toughness can overcome even the most hostile environments. The timing of her confession makes the victory over Venus Williams even more remarkable. Think about the emotional energy it takes to open up about mental health struggles, to cry in public, to be vulnerable in a way that athletes are trained not to be. Most players would need days or weeks to recover from that kind of emotional exposure. But Eala went from tears to triumph in a matter of hours. That's not just athleticism. That's emotional intelligence and resilience at the highest level. It suggests that talking about her struggles, rather than burying them, actually freed her to play better tennis. That's a lesson that could benefit athletes across all sports. Now let's talk about the match itself in more detail, because the tactical and psychological elements of this upset deserve deeper analysis. When Eala and Jovic walked onto the court, they had to know they were massive underdogs. Venus Williams, even at this stage of her career, is still Venus Williams. She's seen every shot, every strategy, every pressure situation imaginable. She's won on the biggest stages in the world. And Alina Svitolina is no slouch either. The Ukrainian star has been in the top 10 for years, won WTA titles across multiple surfaces, and reached the semifinals of multiple Grand Slams. These are players who know how to close out matches. But something interesting happened in that first set tiebreak. When Williams and Svitolina got to set point, they probably expected the youngsters to tighten up. That's what usually happens. Experience is supposed to prevail in these moments because veterans know how to handle pressure while young players are still learning. But Eala and Jovic never showed any signs of nervousness. They kept swinging freely. They kept going for their shots. And every time they saved a set point, they got more confident while the veterans got more frustrated. By the time Eala and Jovic won that first set tiebreak, the psychological advantage had completely flipped. Williams and Svitolina had thrown their best punch, and it hadn't landed. They'd had 7 chances to take control of the match and couldn't convert any of them. That kind of failure can be demoralizing, especially when you're facing opponents who should, in theory, be intimidated by you. The second set was essentially a formality. The legends were mentally and emotionally spent, while the teenagers were flying high on adrenaline and belief. There's also a generational element to this story that can't be ignored. Venus Williams is 44 years old. She's been playing professional tennis since 1994. She's won Olympic gold medals, Grand Slam titles, and changed the sport in countless ways. But Father Time is undefeated, and even legends have to confront their own mortality eventually. This loss to Eala and Jovic might not be the end of Venus's career, but it's certainly a reminder that the torch is being passed to a new generation. The question is whether Venus will accept that gracefully or continue fighting against the inevitable. For Eala and Jovic, this one could be a launching pad for something much bigger. Both players are still in their teens and have their entire careers ahead of them. This kind of signature victory, especially at the start of the season, can provide enormous confidence and momentum. It tells them that they belong at the highest level of the sport. It tells them that they can compete with and beat the best players in the world. That belief is invaluable and could be the difference between becoming journeyman professionals and becoming Grand Slam champions. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because the real test is still to come. Doubles is different from singles. You can hide some weaknesses in doubles that get exposed in singles. You have a partner to pick you up when you're struggling. You can split the pressure and the responsibility. Singles is a different beast entirely. It's just you, alone on the court, with nowhere to hide and no one to help you. That's why Eala's upcoming singles match against Donna Vekic is so crucial. Vekic is a formidable opponent. The Croatian star has been ranked as high as number 19 in the world and has wins over some of the biggest names in tennis. She recently made the Olympic final in Paris, losing to Zheng Qinwen, but proving that she can perform on the biggest stages. Vekic has a powerful game built around big serves and heavy ground strokes. She's aggressive, she's experienced, and she won't be intimidated by a 20-year-old, no matter what that 20-year-old just accomplished in doubles. This is where we'll see what Eala is really made of. Can she back up the doubles upset with a strong singles performance? Can she handle the pressure of being in the spotlight after her emotional confession and her victory over Venus? Can she execute her game plan against a player who's going to be coming at her with everything she's got? These are the questions that will define Eala's 2026 season and potentially her career. The broader context of the ASB Classic also matters here. This tournament is the final major tune-up before the Australian Open, which begins in just over a week. Every player in Auckland is trying to find their form, work out the kinks in their game, and build confidence heading into Melbourne. For Venus Williams, this doubles loss is disappointing but not catastrophic. She's already been awarded a wild card for the Australian Open, where she's a 4-time doubles champion. She'll have time to regroup and refocus. But for younger players like Eala, every match is an opportunity to make a statement and possibly earn better seeding or wild cards for future events. The Australian Open looms large for Eala in particular. If she can string together some wins in Auckland and carry that form to Melbourne, she could make serious noise at her first Grand Slam of the year. The Philippines has never produced a Grand Slam singles champion, and while it's way too early to start talking about Eala in those terms, the trajectory is promising. She's got the talent, she's got the mental toughness, and now, after her confession, she's got the support of fans around the world who are rooting for her to succeed. Speaking of fan support, the reaction to Eala's mental health revelation has been overwhelmingly positive. Social media has been flooded with messages of encouragement and solidarity. Fans are praising her courage for speaking out about such a personal and painful topic. Many are sharing their own stories of bullying and mental health struggles, creating a sense of community and connection around Eala's experience. This outpouring of support could be incredibly meaningful for Eala, especially if she struggled with feeling alone and isolated during her teenage years. She now knows that she has a massive support system behind her, and that can be a powerful source of strength. But there's also been a darker side to the reaction. Some people are asking hard questions about who exactly was responsible for Eala's bullying and isolation. Were there specific coaches or players who made her feel unwelcome? Were there systemic issues at the academies where she trained? And what, if anything, is being done to prevent other young players from experiencing the same thing? These are uncomfortable questions that the tennis establishment would probably prefer to avoid, but they're necessary questions if the sport is going to evolve and become more inclusive. The Women's Tennis Association has made some efforts in recent years to address mental health issues among players. They've partnered with mental health organizations, provided resources for players struggling with anxiety and depression, and tried to reduce some of the schedule pressures that contribute to burnout. But Eala's story suggests that more needs to be done, especially for young international players who are particularly vulnerable to isolation and cultural dislocation. Tennis academies need to do a better job of creating inclusive environments where players from all backgrounds feel welcomed and supported. Coaches need to be trained to recognize signs of mental health struggles and know how to intervene appropriately. And the tennis community as a whole needs to foster a culture where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength, not weakness. As we look ahead to the rest of the ASB Classic and the Australian Open beyond, Eala's story will continue to be one of the most compelling narratives of the early season. She's given us a window into the hidden costs of pursuing athletic excellence, and she's shown us that vulnerability and strength are not mutually exclusive. In fact, her willingness to be vulnerable may be the source of her greatest strength. Every time she steps on the court now, she carries the hopes and dreams of an entire nation behind her. The Philippines is a country that loves its sports heroes, and Eala is quickly becoming one of the biggest stars in Philippine sports history. But beyond national pride, Eala represents something universal. She represents everyone who's ever been told they don't belong, everyone who's ever been bullied or excluded, everyone who's ever struggled with mental health issues in silence. Her success is their success. Her victories are their victories. And her willingness to speak her truth gives others permission to do the same. That's a legacy that extends far beyond tennis rankings and tournament results. The coming weeks will be crucial for Eala's development as a player and as a public figure. How she handles the increased attention, the heightened expectations, and the ongoing demands of professional tennis will tell us a lot about her character and her potential. If she can maintain her focus, continue to improve her game, and stay true to herself in the face of mounting pressure, there's no limit to what she can achieve. The talent is clearly there. The mental toughness is clearly there. And now, with her story out in the open, she's freed herself from the burden of carrying that pain alone. So where does this leave us, champions? We're witnessing the emergence of a genuine star, a player who has the ability to transcend the sport and become something bigger. Eala's journey from bullied teenager to Venus Williams conqueror is the kind of story that reminds us why we love sports in the first place. It's not just about the competition or the results. It's about the human drama, the personal struggles, and the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. Eala has given us all of that and more, and we're only at the beginning of her story. The next chapter gets written against Donna Vekic in singles. Then comes the Australian Open. Then the rest of the 2026 season stretches out ahead, full of possibility and potential. Will there be setbacks? Almost certainly. Will there be more struggles? Probably. But now we know that Eala has the strength to overcome whatever obstacles come her way. She's already overcome so much just to get to this point. Every match from here on out is a bonus, a chance to prove herself again, a chance to inspire others who are fighting their own battles. This is the power of sport at its best. It gives us heroes we can relate to, stories we can invest in, and moments that remind us of what human beings are capable of when they refuse to give up. Eala has given us all of that in the span of a few extraordinary days in Auckland. She's shown us her pain, she's shown us her strength, and she's shown us her incredible talent. We can't wait to see what she does next. So what do you think, champions? Is Eala destined for greatness? Can she parlay this doubles victory into a deep singles run? And what does her story tell us about the state of mental health support in professional tennis? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us about your own experiences with bullying or mental health struggles. Let's build a community that supports these athletes not just when they're winning, but when they're struggling too. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most compelling stories of the early tennis season, show us some love by smashing that like button. It helps the algorithm push our content to more tennis fans who need to hear these stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Champions Tennisitics and hit that notification bell. We're bringing you the drama, the analysis, and the stories behind the stories all season long. You don't want to miss a single serve, a single upset, or a single emotional revelation. This is just the beginning of what promises to be an unforgettable year in tennis. This is Champions Tennisitics, reminding you that behind every ace, every winner, and every victory, there's a human being with a story worth telling. Eala just told us hers, and it's a story that will resonate for years to come. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay inspired. We'll see you in the next one.
Media. How do you deal with this, and how can you help educate Filipinos?
Well, I never think, well, for one, there's so much positive, there's so much positive that I get from the Pinoy. So,
Hirap sabihin na there was a moment of realization